remotely. Welcome to the first meeting this session of the House Budget Review Subcommittee of Justice, Public Safety, and Judiciary. Members were provided the information prior to the meeting on how to access the meeting remotely. And any meeting materials received by the deadline were posted online earlier this week. At this time, we'll have the Secretary call the roll. Members, you'll have to indicate whether you are present in person or remote from your office. Madam Secretary.
Representative Cantrell. Representative Decker.
Present in the room.
Representative Elliott.
I'm present from my office.
Thank you. Representative Hatton.
Present in my annex office.
Thank you. Representative Nemes. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Massey. Chair Fisher.
Here. So this afternoon we're going to hear testimony from the Acting Commissioner of the Department of Kentucky State Police first, and then our Kenton County Circuit Court Clerk. So starting with Commissioner Burnett, please identify yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Colonel Philip Burnett Jr., and I'm currently the Acting Commissioner of Kentucky State Police. Hello and good afternoon. Just like to give you a little bit of background before I start. I'm nearing the completion of my 26th year of sworn service with the agency, where I've held a variety of positions. My love of the agency runs deep, and I have spent over half of my life donning this uniform. That's why I want to thank you for having me here today to discuss the unprecedented issues that the agency is currently facing. The current retention and recruitment of agency personnel is one of the most critical issues I've observed during my career. That is why the number one priority for Kentucky State Police in the 2022 fiscal year is to maintain, strengthen, and diversify our essential workforce. By doing so, we can continue to provide effective and highly skilled law enforcement services to our citizens and better reflect the diverse communities that the KSP serves throughout the Commonwealth. Governor Beshear's administration recognizes our current issues, and proposed budget provides $5.1 million toward our trooper salary schedule, $3 million to fund our rapid DNA project, $500,000 toward sworn recruitment efforts, $1.4 million to raise the sworn personnel clip stipend by $600, and a 1% increase for civilians, which would impact our KSP telecommunicators, our KSP lab personnel, and facility security officers. As a full service law enforcement agency, KSP's mission is fulfilled not only by troopers, but by a substantial number of civilian personnel, such as these, to perform essential functions in service to the Commonwealth. Recruitment and retention of these employees is also a challenge due to non-competitive pay, and KSP struggles with high turnover rates in these positions. The governor has recognized such, and his proposed budget funding is an important first step in making KSP more competitive in salaries to recruit and retain the needed workforce that reflects the diversity of Kentucky. First, I would like to discuss our current staffing issues. Currently, Kentucky State Police, we have 805 sworn troopers. This is the lowest number that we've had since 1988, over 30 years ago. And that also includes 45 troopers that we just graduated from our 100th cadet class just a couple of weeks ago. This is 203 troopers short of what we had our all-time high in 2006, which results in a 25% decrease in coverage. In 2006, we had 1,009 sworn troopers. To put this in perspective, the Kentucky State Police has 16 post districts across the state. This decline is equivalent to troopers in 5 of those post areas, which would include the Richmond Post, Moorhead Post, Pikeville Post, Harlan Post, and London. Another issue that we face is that at the end of this calendar year, that we will have approximately 200 troopers that will be eligible to retire. If those retire, that would reflect possibly up to another 5 post areas in loss of personnel. One may ask, why is the state police number so low? And we've conducted an in-depth analysis as to why. But since 2015, we have lost over 100 troopers to resignations. And then when we talk with them, why did you leave? 52% of them decided the reason for leaving was for pay. And just since January the 1st of this year, we've had 8 troopers resign from our agency. I spoke on pay, and let me talk about the current pay for Kentucky State Police. State trooper salaries currently rank 74th among law enforcement agencies in Kentucky alone. This was based upon a DOCJT 2018 comprehensive survey of law enforcement salaries. We're also last in cadet pay and commissioned trooper pay among state agencies that border Kentucky. One thing I would like to do, I'd like to thank the legislature for the work and the effort that you put forth by creating a trooper job series salary schedule in 2016. This did assist in retention for our troopers, but what we've seen in the past 5 years, other law enforcement agencies in Kentucky have adjusted their salaries accordingly, resulting in KSP salaries lagging behind. What compounds the pay disparity and lack of personnel even more is the increased expanded services that Kentucky State Police provides to other law enforcement agencies, including those that our pay is not competitive with. In 2017, we created CERT, which is the Critical Incident Response Team. Those conduct officer-involved shootings for Kentucky State Police as well as any other law enforcement agency in Kentucky. CERT also encompasses our collision reconstruction analysis team, where they provide reconstruction services and or assistance for complex reconstructions. This branch consists of 15 highly trained investigative troopers. These investigations are manpower intensive and very expensive. We also have our electronic crimes branch to assist Kentucky agencies with investigative assistance on digital evidence. It is also staffed with 15 troopers, but we've also had to staff it with 9 civilians. As we all know, just about every crime today involves some sort of digital evidence aspect. Our troopers in that branch will respond for assistance or for items that they would like analyzed by other agencies, or those can be submitted to our electronic crimes branch for analysis. We've also have our special response team that has been utilized much more. They're available to assist other agencies to provide tactical support on potential critical incidents. With the civil unrest we saw in Louisville in 2020, KSP also provided several crowd management teams to the Louisville area. These teams come from various posts across the state, but these crowd control teams were had to be utilized in portions of Western Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, and Eastern Kentucky, which were requested by local agencies as well. We also have our forensic laboratories that is open to 445 law enforcement agencies across the state. All of these services that I've just described have one thing in common. They're provided to all law enforcement agencies within Kentucky at no charge. The issue is the ability to continue these services to our Kentucky law enforcement partners and maintain our current traditional law enforcement services to all areas of Kentucky, including those with limited law enforcement coverage in rural areas. The next issue I'd like to discuss is our issues with recruitment. Recruitment is another challenging and critical issue we are currently addressing. KSP and law enforcement in general have seen a sharp decrease in applicants, and we continue to struggle with the recruitment of minorities and women. Currently, we have just over 300 applications for the upcoming cadet class. During the same application period, this is almost half of what applied from our previous class that just graduated. This is extremely concerning to me, as when I and others that applied in the mid-90s, there were in excess of 3,000 applications. Governor Beshear has the same concerns, and one of his top priorities is to recruit and maintain highly skilled and diverse workforce for Kentucky. As a result, the governor's office has proposed $500,000 for recruitment. This is the first time specific funding has been addressed to the KSP for recruiting efforts. Our agency has really put forth a lot of thought and effort on how to increase our applicant pool. It's all the way up to our executive command staff, right down to all of our troopers in the field. What can we do? One thing in talking with potential applicants, and one thing that potentially hurts Kentucky State Police is the possibility of being reassigned to another portion of the state upon graduating from the academy. So to try to rectify that, we come up with what we call the Pick 3 concept. What that is, when you apply, become a trooper, once you graduate, you put down your 3 top posts you would like to work at. Based on the needs of the agency and communities that we serve, where we need to assign personnel, we will pick one of those top 3. So what that means is someone from Mayfield may not be assigned to Pikeville, or should not be assigned to Pikeville. They would be one of their 3, unless that's one of their 3 choices. We've also worked on an online application to deal with some of our youth. What we've seen that they like to be able to submit their application along download with all their documents directly to our recruitment section. So we're currently in the process of working on that. We've created a lot of marketing materials, business cards. We created over 30,000 cards such as this to give to our troopers. So when they see someone that potentially would like to be a trooper, it'll explain what the process is. Join KSP. We've also conducted a top to bottom review of our recruitment branch. After talking with women and minorities within our own agency, they felt applicants seeing recruiters that mirror themselves was a positive approach. As a result, we have dramatically expanded our recruitment personnel. We contacted 2 of our former retirees who are a minority. These troopers, they'll be brought back into the agency as a trooper R and assigned to the recruitment branch. We've also transferred another minority trooper from Eastern Kentucky, a female from Eastern Kentucky, and another trooper from Western Kentucky. The recruitment branch is larger and more diverse than any other time in the history of the Kentucky State Police. This does come at a price, because we are taking highly trained, exceptional troopers from the field, which only increases the lack of coverage that we can provide. But we feel it's a sacrifice that we have to make. For our minority recruiting, we even went further on how to increase and maximize those efforts. We discovered that 15 counties encompassed 82% of the African American population of the entire state of Kentucky. We also discovered that of those counties, all have a police department, sheriff's department, or both who have a higher salary than KSP. Some of these even had entry level wages of $30,000 above what the KSP starts at. We feel establishing competitive salaries coupled with the Pick 3 initiative, we can better compete with those agencies for qualified applicants, especially minorities. We are also partnering with Dr. Aaron Thompson of the Kentucky Department of Education, as well as Vicki Stone with Kentucky Personnel Cabinet to further diversify our recruitment efforts. A portion of the governor's proposed recruitment funding is to create static billboards on highly traveled roadways, parkways, interstates across our state, and conduct micro-targeting campaign to target individuals from ages between 20 and 35 with a more specific focus on minorities and female candidates. What that is, anyone with potential that we've identified, someone that is a military veteran, involved in sports, outdoors, fitness, criminal justice majors. Those are the ones we're going to be targeting to try to recruit to come to KSP. As I said earlier, we're just over 300 candidates, and to be able to start a class of 90 cadets, we really need a minimum of 550 candidates. To put it in perspective, if we attain enough applicants by March 31st of this year, by the time we do all the things we have to do and background investigation, those type things, the quickest that we can start a class would be October the 1st of this year. Our academy class is 24 weeks long. The field training portion of it is 12 weeks on top of that. So the quickest we could possibly hope for to have another Kentucky State Trooper graduate from the academy, or I won't say graduate from the academy, but be out on the road ready, would be July 1st of 2022. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for having me here today. I'd also like to thank you for being an advocate for the agency and for understanding our budgetary needs. If there are any questions about any of the areas that I've talked about today, I'm prepared to discuss them. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Blanton has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to sit in. And actually, it's more of a comment than a question. Commissioner and I have had conversations about this. We've seen this coming. I think I would want more along the lines of help explain some things for people to get a better understanding of KSP and its works. When we talk about 800 troopers, keep in mind that's not just uniformed troopers on the road. If we had that many uniformed troopers on the road, we'd be in pretty good shape. But we have general investigative detectives. They work murders, they work burglaries, they work arson, they work all types of criminal cases, and especially in rural areas, they're the only ones that's doing these investigations. Then we've got our electronic crimes unit, we got our special investigations units, we got our SRT unit, and we got executive security. We begin to break all these down, and they're necessary positions, but every time you have someone in that position, that takes somebody off the road, just like Commissioner was talking about, beefing up the recruitment branch, which I applaud him for doing. That takes valuable personnel off the road. But still, it's a necessity that we have to have. And 300 people for 90 positions might sound like a lot, but we at KSP, and I still refer to it as we at KSP take pride in the people that we hire, and we look for the best. We have a stellar reputation across the Commonwealth of being professional, doing an excellent job in our investigations and the work that we conduct. And quite frankly, when we begin the hiring process, we eliminate a whole lot of people, not only the ones that can't maybe pass the written exam or the fitness test, but simply on background investigations. You have to have a very clean background in order to go to work for KSP, because it's a part of our holding up that professionalism and who we choose. If we begin to go down the slippery slope of not being as selective of the people we hire, then we're going to start seeing more and more issues arise of problem troopers out here. And that's not good for the citizenry. It's not good for the image of KSP. So we're very selective. And so we need to continue to be the best. We need to be able to be competitive with every other agency out there. And it's vitally important that we look at finding a way to increase the salaries of our troopers, not because that we're simply wanting to do something good for the individual troopers, but so that we can keep a top-notch professional agency up and operational and doing the things that it does across this Commonwealth. And nearly every county, I say nearly because we have 2 or 3 that may not have troopers assigned because of their local law enforcement, but it doesn't mean that KSP is still not in those counties doing investigations from time to time. In my 30-plus years with and around KSP, this is the most dire time we've ever faced. And we really have to look at, as a legislative body, what we can do to help them to remedy this problem so they can continue the good work that they do. And as he mentioned early on, a lot of the work they do includes work in our labs for every other law enforcement agency across this state at zero cost to them. As a matter of fact, our lab does more work, correct me, Commissioner, if I'm wrong, for other agencies than they do KSP itself when it comes to lab work. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. 16% of the submissions to the laboratory are by KSP. The rest are from other agencies.
So 84% of the work done by the KSP lab that is funded as part of the budget we give KSP is helping all the other law enforcement agencies across the state, not KSP itself. So I just ask this committee to take these things into consideration and look at what we can do to help KSP during these troubling times. We had no saying when I was working. We're asked to do more with less all the time. But there comes a point in time when you can't do more with less. You got to have more in order to survive. And I just ask for the support of all the members of this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I guess I have another question, not just the salary scale as compared to other law enforcement agencies and other states, things like that, but isn't it becoming a recruiting problem just to recruit anybody who wants to serve in law enforcement these days? I don't know if other agencies are having the same problems that KSP is having, but it's just not become an attractive alternative career for young people to enter into. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes, sir. We're all agencies that we talk with, and I talk with a lot of other state agencies. Everyone is seeing a decrease in amount of applications, becoming law enforcement. So that's why, with us, we're trying to think outside the box, sort of say, I know that's a term or it's a phrase utilized a lot, but that's what we're trying to do to attract young men and women and minorities to our agency, because that's what the Kentuckians deserve, and that's what we have to do to bring those in.
Thank you. Representative Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, I appreciate you being here. Part of the problem, I think, in recruiting is that there's a lack of respect felt by the trooper from the community and certainly from the legislature. So I just wanted to tell you, and every opportunity I get to say how much respect that I have and my colleagues in the legislature for law enforcement in general, but for our troopers in particular. I'm a Louisville boy, and when our city of Louisville needed our help this summer, the men and women in gray came to our help, to our aid. And everybody I talked to from the right and the left, and no matter where they were on, talked about how professional the men and women in gray were. And that means more to me than I can ever convey to you and to the people who work under you. I would also note that not only is the salary an issue and benefits and so forth, but we need, in this environment that we're in, where we've got the defund monikers and so forth, and I don't want to get into politics on those questions, but in today's time and today's environment, we need to take tangible steps of respect. In the last few years, we've given much needed, overdue. We don't get kudos for this because it was necessary, but much needed raises to the troopers. We've solved some problems, although we've addressed some problems, not solved, with regard to the automobiles that your troopers are in. We got rifles, and so we've done some of the necessities, and now it's time to take further steps. And the two things that I'd like to see that we do in particular is to come through on the CLEP funds. CLEP funds are not from tax dollars. That CLEP fund is healthy. We must come through with CLEP this year in the legislature. That $600 increase, we've got to come through for that. The other thing, Representative Blanton's bill, which would increase the amount of the percentage of pay that someone would get if they have a total permanent disability on the job from 25% to 75%. Those are things we must do. They're not only good with the pocketbooks of the troopers who are working on our behalf for too few dollars already, but they show the respect that's due of the trooper, and that I think that we have. We say those words, we feel it, we got to come through for it. And so I hope we can do that this session. And Commissioners, great to see you here today. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you and all the men and women in gray who came to our city in Louisville in our time of need this summer. So thank you for your professionalism, and thank you for always being there for, I wouldn't say us because it's all of us, but for Kentucky's city of Louisville. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
I do have one more question. Commissioner, earlier in your statement, you mentioned the governor's budget contained $5.1 million and $3.0 million for rapid DNA testing, things like that. Will that amount that the governor has proposed, would that go quite a long ways to solving the retention and recruitment issue that you're having?
Yes, it will. We feel that the governor's proposal, is very fair and equitable, especially across the executive branch. But yes, those obviously deal with a lot of the issues that we're dealing with within our agency.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner. It's an important testimony, and we will act on it hopefully this session. If not this session, the next budget session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Our next item on the agenda is from the Kentucky Circuit Court Clerks. They've asked to address this committee. It's John Middleton, Kenton Circuit Court Clerk and co-chair of the Legislation Committee for the Kentucky Association of Circuit Court Clerks. John, are you on?
Yes,
All right,
I'm here. Thank you.
Welcome. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is John Middleton. I'm Kenton Circuit Clerk and co-chair of our Legislation Committee. I know that you're going to be happy to hear the three things I'm here to talk about today. First is I'm going to be brief. Second is I'm going to provide you with some information. And the third is I'm not here to ask for additional money. We're just here to asking you to retain the language and funding that was included in the judicial branch budget from the 2020 enacted budget. Many of you may know about the office of the Circuit Court Clerk, but some of you may not know the details of how we operate. Unlike many of our fellow county elected officials, we're not a fee-based office. All of our funding comes through the judicial branch budget, and that's why we're here before this committee today. Because we're not a fee-based office, we have no budget. All of our funding comes through the administrative offices of the courts. This includes our funding for our expense accounts that we're talking about today. We certainly understand the desire to rein in expenses, but all we're asking for is to be kept on par financially with other similarly elected county and state officials. In your packet, you'll see that the salaries of county officials are between $12,000 and $19,000 higher than those of similar circuit clerks. This amounts to over a 16% difference across the board statewide. Your circuit clerk in the judicial branch is being paid far less than other officials in the executive branch. Additionally, county officials are able to use their fee-based money to pay for their additional business expenses of the office. All circuit clerks pay out of their pockets to support their employees and to boost morale during these very difficult times, and then also even during the more normal times. We're simply asking you to maintain this funding and not cut the expense accounts for circuit clerks. We're asking that we be treated co-equally with other elected officials in the executive branch. We know that these are uncertain budget times, and while I'd like to be here discussing a more competitive salary structure for our deputies and for the elected clerks, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that this funding is vital to the daily operation of the circuit clerk's offices. I thank you for your time. Like I said, I would be brief, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Representative Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank John Middleton for his comments here today on behalf of the circuit clerks. I want to highlight one thing and then ask a question. The highlight is you're asking to be kept on par. That's not what you're asking for, John, because you guys are way behind already. And so you're asking not to be put further behind. Our circuit clerks are so far behind, and it's because the county officers of PVA and county clerk and jailer and so forth are largely fee-based, but not all of them. The jailer's not, but they're funded from mostly from the county coffers, whereas you guys are funded from the Court of Justice coffers. And so point number one that I wanted to mention is you're being very charitable in your words today, but you're not asking for parity because you're nowhere near parity. You're asking just not to be put further behind. And the question I have is, and I want to highlight this for my colleagues because this is a very important point. If we don't fund this request, if we don't put a line item in there, the money will not go into the general fund for us to use for other important things. It will go to the judiciary for Chief Justice Minton to spend it however he wants to. So by not funding it, it gives more money to the court system to use for their discretion. By line iteming it, it requires the Chief Justice to give these dollars to our circuit clerks. So it does not benefit the Commonwealth of Kentucky not to fund it, as one might think, because the money would just go to the Court of Justice for their use of discretionary funds. So I wanted to make sure that my understanding of that is correct, and I'm not asking you to take a position on the discretionary funds on the courts, but is my understanding correct that if we don't line item it, it just goes to the courts to use as they please?
Yes, that is my understanding as well. It's a judicial branch budget function.
Okay, that's what I thought, Mr. Chairman. So it's not gonna revert back for the general fund for our usage. It will go to the Court of Justice, and so that's another reason that I think we need to support this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Got a quick question myself. Under the current continuation budget, is there anything we have to do to make sure that this continues as it did in the last budget session? Or do we have to do something line item, or does anybody know?
So I think this was in the
statutory. Yeah,
this was in the budget last time, or we took it out. The governor vetoed some language, and we didn't override it. So if we just, Zach, I think, is that right?
Yes, you would either, if you wouldn't be able to increase it, it's introduced by the Chief Justice. But if you were to suspend the statute in the past, it's to lower it.
Right.
But if you don't put any language in, and you let statute ride,
they would receive the funding. Okay.
All right.
So we just take out the notwithstanding language that we had last time.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, John, we appreciate your testimony today. We'll certainly keep an eye on that budget item. And if there are no other business before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.